Yes, no, maybe so.
Um, this is Rainier. I had
Hey.
a
Hey, Rain.
hey, hey, I had a dream which I think might be applicable.
To last week?
No, well, to everything.
Okay.
Um, well, I was telling but no, I couldn't remember the phone number this morning in my dream. I was trying to call in. Um, but I dreamt I had gone to up a mountain. I had gone up a tall mountain to go to church. And the church was a lot like the church I sing at out here. And I remember, though I wasn't there to sing, I was there to go to church. And I was in the row with all of these folks who weren't very serious about faith. I remember feeling like I was in the row with a bunch of teenagers, but they weren't. And we went up at one point to give money, to give an offering. And I didn't have any money, but there were some coins right near the offering that weren't in it. But they were like almost like a coin jar. And I took the money from some of the coins from the coin jar and put it in the offering. And the weirdest thing though, that was strange, was not the church itself, it was getting there. Like on the way up, I had to climb lots of stairs and climb up and go way up this mountain. And there were some people who lived fairly close to church, so they didn't have to quite go up as far, but I lived way at the bottom. And so on the way down from church, I was riding in a bus maybe with some folks, and there was an airplane in front of us that was flying the contours of the road, and it landed at some point and let some people off. And it had come from the church. So some people rode the airplane to and from church. But at one point, I had to get off the bus and walk down church, the road, the way, path from church. And there was this man who came to talk to me, and he looked like he was a black fella, and he looked like he might have been indigent maybe, or anyway, he looked like it was rough time, but he was talking to me, and he's saying how he was from Broad River Road and all these Columbia references, and I said, oh, I'm from there, and we're walking for a minute, and then someone comes, and they, in essence, waylay him from talking and walking with me. And initially when he approached me, I thought he was going to rob me. I'm not having anything to be robbed, but anyway. But he didn't. We were talking, and then this other person comes, and they divert him, and as soon as he's diverted from talking to me, the rest of the way down the road, people are attacking me, and I'm trying to go down these stairs to get home. And it was just odd that, I usually think of ascending and going up as spiritual enlightenment, but in this case, I was going down, and I was being attacked all the way down, and I was walking by myself, trying to get off this path up to that place. And I make it down, but after lots of people try to attack me, and anyway, that was it. But it was a very odd, strong dream, I guess.
I have one question. What did the church look like? Or was it a building, or was it just an essence?
It felt more like an essence. I remember being in the church. I don't remember seeing the church per se. I just remember that point when I was sitting on the row with these folks. And like I said, I felt like they were like kids, but they weren't kids, but they were talking and laughing and joking. And we were sitting on this row together. But I don't remember walking up to a building per se. I just know that's what it was. And I remember being outside of it as I was leaving or as I was coming toward it. That was it.
I have a question. When you were being attacked on the way down, was it just more like bothersome mosquitoes, or were you in some way feeling literally, physically put upon?
I was feeling literally attacked. Like the only guy that didn't attack me was the one I thought was going to. The first guy who came to talk to me, because he just looked very sketchy. He looked like he'd been maybe homeless or something. So, but I didn't stop. I didn't shun him. I just was a little cautious about him. But then the other people, I remember one guy coming and attacking me, and he was in a suit even, with a bowler hat. And he was, I could tell as soon as he saw me and zeroed in on me so he could attack me. And I remember things like dodging things by jumping over kicks or, and it was just like, what in the world? And it wasn't just men. There was a couple times, it was several people. There were women or they would verbally come and attack me, and I would get away from them quickly but I didn't get why on the way down I was being attacked, because I would have thought if it was about spiritual ascension, it would have been on the way up, But then again, when I got up to the church, it didn't feel like I had ascended per se. But
felt like you were.
yeah, sometimes it was people, sometimes it was just threatening, where they were saying things and verbally trying to,
I guess I meant in my question whether you felt you were being hit.
Oh, could I feel the hits? I don't recall feeling them. I didn't feel, like if someone hit me, I never felt pain. No.
So after it was all was said and done, you didn't feel wounded or beat up?
No, I felt tired from dodging all those obstacles and having to be on my toes the whole time.
Were they verbal obstacles?
Yeah, some of them were verbal. I remembered a woman or two women, and it was more of the bullying you might find in school. And that's their verbal.
You were dealing with the essence of religion? Because you said they like kids in the church?
Well, one
In the
is
church,
the
yes.
church, yeah.
On the way down, I don't know who these people were. I mean, they were just people along the path to get to church. But it was interesting because initially I left church with the people that were on my row with me, and then they went away. And I don't know what happened. I don't know if their houses were shorter or whatever, but I was alone for most of the path down as I was walking. And there were steps, lots of steps. I was walking down the steps, and these people would come at me, these obstacles, as I was trying to get down back to home, I guess, or wherever I was going.
Suppose you were at a place of enlightenment and what were perceived to be attacks was the result of the anger that you had caused by virtue of what you had experienced, because religion always singly attacks the true enlightenment or those who are on a journey for truth.
Mm.
Maybe the guy who seemed to be homeless was the guy from the gun.
From the where?
Black Panther dude. Maybe the essence of it is more spiritual than you think.
Yeah.
Because of the art of spirituality. And the reason you're afraid is based upon conditioning, societal conditioning.
Yeah, it was with him. I was afraid of him because of how he appeared. And he was the one person that didn't attack me. He was the one person that was walking with me. But it was almost like these people who wanted to attack me waylaid him. They stopped him from walking with me. Huh?
Were they Africans also?
Were they doing what?
Were they Africans? You said the guy who was homeless was black.
He was black. I don't remember the other ones. Like the girls I remember were might have been mixed. And the bowler hat guy was white. So there was a variety, but he was the only one who looked African. Dark skin,
So, if that's the case, spiritually, right? Then could he not be representative of the seed? that needs to recognize the balance of femininity.
Mhm.
And he did. And there was a push against that. That's why they stopped him from walking with him.
Mhm.
Does that make sense? Does it resonate? But
I would say had we continued to walk because we shared a origin, we shared that we were both familiar with Colombia, we might have found out more of connection than we were able to because of the distraction.
I think Columbia is more of an experience based upon familiarity. How you do familiar stuff in the dream to help you remember. I think, yeah. Unless it's because of something that people shared with me this morning. The Southtown you went to succeed again.
The South is what?
Southtown is talking about seceding from the Union.
Oh, really?
Mm.
The Republican Party, yes.
Well, we had a secede from them.
That's not hyperbole either.
Already know. The other thing, as you described the man, and you were from the same origin, I felt like you were, because you had that origin in common, and from a spiritual perspective, once you put aside your outside perceptions of how he looked and heard what he said, you connected with, okay, we're from the same region, we're from the same area, and you were feeling more comfortable because of that connection. I'm just wondering if that guy was a messenger.
Mm.
And whereas all the other people were trying to distract and prevent you from receiving that message or attaining where you're going.
Mhm. Yeah, I definitely felt that way too. I felt like had he stayed with me, I wouldn't have been attacked.
And the
But
other
he,
and the other folk at the essence of the church, you said were younger.
yeah, they were like, I was sitting on this row with the equivalent of frat boys, I felt.
Why do you say
They were-
boys? Just boys?
No, they weren't. That's just it. They were at least college age, if not older, but they reminded me of frat boys, bros. You know, they were,
So,
I can explain that.
So, and you all were in the essence of this church, so I'm wondering if part of that could not represent the immaturity related to seekers of enlightenment, that you were in the same area, but did you get the same message? It seems like the receipt was different. The receipt of that was different. One was the laughter, and I don't know if that was. I'm not judging that laughter. I'm just. What you were you laughing when you got? I mean, when you say frat boys, did you perceive that there was? How did you perceive, quote unquote, frat boys? They're talking amongst themselves, giggling,
Yes.
joking amongst themselves.
Exactly. That's what it was. Like almost I couldn't hear whatever the message was because of the people I was sitting near.
Okay, so you even had distractions there as well.
Yes. Oh, it seemed like a nice church. But like I said, I remember going up, and I don't know why I didn't have an offering. I didn't feel, but I know that none of them put anything in the plate. I remember that, and I remember seeing the spot. Like it was like a little coin dish near in a 7-Eleven or something. And I knew it was there to put in the offering, and no one else was doing that. And for a second, I thought maybe I'm stealing from the church, but then I thought, but I'm giving it right back. You know, it was weird. It was this weird moment. But it was important. I took the silver coins from that dish and put them in the offering plate as we walked past that, as we took our offering up. But no one else seemed to be prepared or doing anything, at
Richard,
least from my row, this
Richard.
area.
Richard has first.
She didn't answer your question. You asked if the frat boys implied they were all boys.
Yeah,
thought she did.
I'm not sure, Uncle Richard, but it sure felt like it was that feeling. It was almost that essence of being more than if they were boys or girls. It was more of the, it was that extreme of college living where, you know, all I can think of is those those movies you see of the frat parties, that kind of thing. And they're not always only boys or girls there, but that was the sense of the people.
Well, I have two feelings. One, when you describe going up the mountain or whatever, and it being difficult to go up, I see that in two ways. One being from our own spiritual perspective. Even though enlightenment is available and right there, we still have a spiritual journey that we have to go on that can sometimes feel hard. But the other side of that I see is in terms of the essence of religion. Sometimes religion can make that journey toward enlightenment difficult. Yeah. Because of the distractions in terms of the whatever doctrine they have, in terms of the distractions of whatever programs or whatever the church is doing as its ministry, quote unquote. Anyway, so in terms of the essence of religion provides a lot of obstacles and distractions from people really attaining enlightenment. So I see that in two ways. I think the journey down when the people from the church sort of disappeared, they weren't there anymore. I think that is also the essence of religion. And I think that happens in religion. When you're in the church, you have this good feeling and you feel like you're part of it. But when you're in your own life, it doesn't seem to be there for you.
That good feeling dissipates because it's really a pumped up feeling and not.
Well, that's almost like the frat boy feel that I was saying. I guess what it is being among a group of folks that shares your thoughts. You might do things that you normally wouldn't because it's part of the peer pressure or the whatever. So in the party, the drinking it was that feeling of it being a group that was pressing each other into this joyfulness. If that makes any sense.
Well,
Good morning. Mute yourself.
Morning, Grandma.
that
Morning,
in
Grandma.
Okay. Good morning.
itself, that in itself speaks to religion because of the people who do things that they would not normally do, like tell your neighbor hello, or you want a hand clap, that kind of thing. It's entertainment, and it's things that you don't normally do. The whole concept to me of her being there is indicative of the Shekinah, the presence of the Shekinah that was there, present but not recognized. Shekinah is the new essence of the Creator. It was not recognized in that setting, and if it's not recognized in that setting, it's not accepted. The other part about the abuse after leaving,
I agree with Audrey that that type of thing is the essence of the Shekinah being present, but you're blasphemous against it. Why? Because you don't recognize or appreciate it. There's no efforts to find out what it actually is. Yet, there is someone who's trying to talk to her, means to me that there is an opportunity to birth something into the earth. Yet, the opportunity is stolen away because of the abuse that was received. If that makes any sense.
I think too that the homeless guy as a messenger was an opportunity too. And because in the essence of religion, this is a person you shouldn't be around or bother with. Because it's somebody different, and if you do something different, then you're you subject yourself to attack from them.
Well, who is this man Jesus?
Yeah.
Example is he was homeless. That has nothing to do with a physical house. He's talking about a spiritual place to lay your head, a spiritual place for the authority that you are. And that was rejected by the group. So when we look at it, if we look at it from that perspective, we also see that the idea of having to take a coin from a jar is no different than sending Peter to get a coin from the fish. In other words, whatever offering is needed will also be provided by the one who you're offering it to. So that makes a lot of sense to me, because I think that is indicative of where we are at this juncture of this journey. We are faced with an either-or position. Either you're following your engagement, either you are going to continue this place on this road of religion, or you're going to travel the road of spirituality in search of truth. So it doesn't, what it does, it leaves off, to me anyway, it does not deal with, rather, the people who are not connected to religion or church. It simply is reflective of those who are pretending, for lack of a better term, well, not pretending, those who are being duped into believing that they are receiving from the Shekinah. It's interesting to me that she had this dream, because part of what I wanted to raise today is, as I said, who is this man Jesus? Who is he? What does it represent? And so I think the dream in itself has spoken to that, or is speaking to that.
The other thing, as you guys were talking, that I thought about, especially as it relates to religion, is that as I was walking down, I was passing people who were just looking at me with I felt almost like hostile stares, and they had been at the church, but they were further up the mountain. They were the ones who got to ride the airplane down. So in essence, they had more means, even, and they lived further up the mountain, and the higher up you live, the better your views, the better the houses, kind of thing. So I remember thinking, as I saw the airplane following the road and landing, well, gosh, I've got to go a lot further down the mountain. Why couldn't they get me an airplane, to take me all the way down?
That's almost like the religious leaders who are supposed to be really enlightened and who have the physical means to. That's the pastor and the deacons. Coming down. But yet don't have truth to that degree. They may have pieces and parcels or what they think is truth, and are envious at the essence of truth.
Well, in religion, always, not only does it offer the easy way out, but it also, its leadership also lives a much easier life than does the people who are supporting that lifestyle. See, I am thoroughly convinced that we are being challenged because of the revelation of the Shekinah that is in front of us, but we don't clearly see it yet. And I think that that's something that ranges onto much her representing, or her essence representing the representative of the Shekinah. I cannot get away from that because I'm constantly seeing the birth of things that I never thought I would live to see. And it's the Shekinah that's doing that. This whole idea of the seed talking to her, the seed bringing a message to her, and being pushed away is simply the pushback.
It's like I can tell you how to get home.
Yeah.
And I didn't see Columbia as home. I saw home as spiritual. I know the way.
Right.
So,
And the pushback that's being experienced even now. How many of you in this room are experiencing challenges that you thought you never would face? Challenges, and I've talked to people all week who are having challenges one after the other. At one time there was something that was a conflict that you had to deal with and get through it, but now it is just one little thing after the other that appears to be more frustrated than destructive, which in itself lends itself to being a distraction. And why? Because all these are frustrations, what you end up saying, Lord, why me? Or Lord, how can I get through this? Or show me what this means, which is also a distraction. As opposed to simply saying, you know what, this is to be the Lord also. That's a difficult thing. Why? Because what did she describe? The hostility of the concepts that she was passing through or coming in contact with.
one implication is that when you go to this essence called the church, and you think you got enlightenment, you got to still come back and live in the quote-unquote world. And in the quote-unquote world, you still got the same distractions, the same hostilities, the same challenges that you had before. But the difference is, as you said, you have to stay focused on what your goal is. And if you allow yourself to be taken off course, you take the world's quote-unquote scenic route. The scenic route might still get you there, but it might take a lifetime. It might take 2 lifetimes. Whereas if you stayed the course, it might be a different result.
Well, there was one more part of this dream, and it happened before that part, and I didn't realize they were connected until now.
She doesn't unfold until she starts talking.
When you talk about it, I'm like, oh, so they were part of each other. So in the very first part of my dream, I dreamt I was moving from city to city, looking for something. And I remember there being wildernesses between each city, vast wilderness. And some of, like, well, the city I remember most was very technologically advanced. But for some reason, I never stayed in any of them. It's almost like I was looking for something, and each city was an opportunity to find something else, but none of them was where I was supposed to stay, to settle. And at the end of this series of dreams, it felt like to me was this mountaintop dream. But before that, there were these cities, and the forgetting the number to call in. It started with that, when I couldn't remember the number to call in to the foundation this morning in the dream. And then feeling like I was wind blown between the cities almost when I was in the wilderness. But I remember some of it being so technological, like futuristic almost. And I kept moving just from one to the other, and never quite finding where I was supposed to stop or be.
Someone was about to say something?
What does the city represent?
Because if it's not, if there are no people, then it's abandoned town.
Oh, I think there were people in it. I'm trying to remember. I just remember being more struck by the technology in the cities than the people in the cities. Like these were all these future like holograms, or Wakanda city, but not really the people, just that technology.
So the technology was sort of like the God in a sense, because if that's what the city focused on more than the essence of relationships with others.
It would be a representation of enlightenment.
It's a
Also, an
First train, yeah, I mean, it's shiny, it's,
But that's what one of the references is, like a city set up on a hill, which is light. And it's enlightenment. I remember when we were driving from DC to San Diego when I was in college. And we decided to make a couple of weeks out of it. But anyway, I remember coming out of the mountains, or going into the mountains in San Diego, going into across the border, in the state border, and that was this light. It was at night, and we saw this city, or at least we saw the lights from it, and we were like, well, that's where we're going to stop, and it took us like 2 hours to get there, or more, because of the convoluted way that we had to go. Now, we couldn't tell that it was convoluted because it was dark. All we could see was the lights on the hill. So when you talk about a city or enlightenment, the road to it is never direct. It's always convoluted. So those contradictions are part of the curves in the road that you have to take to get there, or a part of the obstacles that you have to overcome. And one of the things that happened when we got close to the town, the guy who was driving got too close to one of the mountains, the part of the mountain close to the road, and he cut a tie on one of the rocks on the side of the mountain. That's how close he got to it. And when we changed, by the time we got the tire change, the sun was up, and we were nowhere from the, with short distance from the town. The point of the matter is that sometimes you don't realize how close you are when you are going through something. The obstacle that you're facing may be the very thing that's designed to keep you from seeing how close you really are to what you are seeking, or what's actually seeking you.
As you were talking, that you put it together just now, as you were talking, I was thinking, the journey, it seems to be external, but the journey really is internal.
Yeah. And that's exactly what Rain is dealing with, because the Hebraic and Aramaic meaning of dream is to uncover or to reveal. So something is being revealed. And there are those who probably think that too much emphasis has been put on the dream. However, I beg to differ, because we have been conditioned to believe that dreams are coincidental, or dreams are about things that we have experienced and only about that, or dreams are things that come because you ate too much at night, something that you happen to you during the day. I do not believe that. I believe with, as do the indigenous people, that every single dream is a message that we are experiencing in the other world. I believe that wholeheartedly. And I believe that we must get back to the place where we embrace dreams as being a reality beyond this illusion. And that's why I believe that Rainier is experiencing so many dreams that relate to what we're doing. And it forces us not only to talk about what she has dreamed or has seen, but it also forces us to be open to the other world to see what it means. So I honestly think that the gateway to understanding where we are and what is to come will be found in those dreams. I believe that. So we have to change the way we've been conditioned. And the only way you can change the way you've been conditioned is to change the way you think. And I've said 1,000 times that if you don't learn how or have a desire to think spiritually, you will never appreciate the journey. You have to. Why? Because every single thing has a spiritual meaning to it. There is a spiritual connection with everything. I mean, how we sat here, we talked about how powerful Black Panther is, the movie, right? Mm-hmm. And we dissected it. And now there has not been a theater in Saudi Arabia in 35 years. Black Panther is opening AMC theater in Saudi Arabia. Why is that happening? Why? Because the closed kingdom of the Arab world is different than the kingdoms in the African world, on the continent of Africa and around the world. So it had to be, that segment had to be open to the energy that's in that movie in order for the life that movie represents, in order for it to be recognized by the people who has closed that society. Because honestly speaking, the whole Arab world, be it Saudi Arabia, Qatar, wherever, they are not Muslims. They say they're Muslims, but they do not follow the Quran. And if they don't follow the Quran, they're not Muslims. They purport to be Muslims. So it's sort of a in-your-face thing. Take another look at who you say you are. Mm. And see if you're really who you say you are. Because if they were really Muslims, the ladies would not have to wear burqas. If they were Muslims. Because that is not a requirement of Islam. So just like the people who purport to be Christians or just religious folks with scripture overtones, the same goes for those who are in the Arab world who purport to be Muslim. So here we are at a juncture where everything is being exposed. Why? Because in order for us to see who we are, we must also see who we are not, based upon the journey that we have been led upon by those who are seeking things for notoriety for themselves, as opposed to seeking to enhance the spiritual essence of the people that they lead.
I think that's interesting too, because Arabs in general, they have a certain attitude about Africans. They see them as slaves or prostitutes or whatever.
They should be so.
That's their stereotypical image of Africans, but that stereotypical image is very, very pervasive. So they don't have any real respect for Africans. So maybe this will change some of that.
Right, and maybe so. I mean, according to Muslim had word, Arabs, he couldn't stand Muslims because Muslims called the Jews because Muslims were the ones who sold us
Right.
into slavery, and the Jews were the ones who paid to have us transported. So yeah, I mean, I don't think it's a maybe, Arden. I think it's a reality. I do believe that, even though I believe that the guy who is the Prince of Saudi Arabia, I think he's a hoodlum. But it doesn't matter how it get there as long as it gets there.
Well, Dave Chappelle says the lie that is Donald Trump is going to create some change.
Absolutely. Well, it takes a lie to force the truth out. And so all of these things are intertwined. The common thread that runs through all of it is truth.
Now, why are y'all gonna be talking about the Muslims when the Prince of Saudi Arabia is coming to our company to visit our CEO on my campus this week, huh?
Well, you'll be there, so maybe you'll take the end.
No, it's already happened. They didn't tell anybody about it.
Wow.
But we knew.
Wonder what they wanted.
Yeah, and her company, right? Yeah, the whole place. Yeah.
Wow.
But and so anyway, I just believe wholeheartedly that the whole script for that movie was written from the other side. I believe it just simply said there has never been a movie that has had the impact that this has had. Never. And the funny thing about it is that this is actually the first movie about us that's ever been written that did not see us in a disparaging way or that did not look at us from slavery forward. The only one.
But did we write the movie Us?
In terms of
Yes, they
yes,
did
we
write
did,
it.
yeah.
So
Yes, that's why I believe it came from the other side. We had to have written it. The reason we had to write it is because it had to be written through the eyes of the African. It had to be seen through the eyes of the African. That is one of the reasons that primarily Africans are the ones who get the message.
well, and the sole premise is that there's no slavery underpinning.
Right.
Because like when she called the guy a colonizer, that was
Yeah.
a real derogatory thing.
Absolutely wrong. And honestly, what it spoke to me is that Wakanda was the other world. The spiritual realm. You're hidden from the natural eye. And manifestation of a physical presence in this world when it was needed to be. So I simply think that this is far beyond anything that we could have anticipated. And that is one of the reasons I constantly say also, don't try to shape it. Don't try to figure out what's coming next or how it's coming. Because none of us could have, I don't think anyway, could have anticipated that this is the impact that this movie is going to have. However, everyone who I have spoken with, Africans who have gone, with the exception of a couple, who see it through the same eyes. You know, there are some who saw it through the eyes of what to do with their daddy got killed. Yeah, him. They saw it through his eyes that there should be a war against their colonizers. However, that is the natural way to do things. And if you think about it, he was born in the natural world. He was born in this earthly realm. Where you see what I'm talking about? But T'Challa was born in the spiritual realm. So they saw it from two different perspectives. And it's the full impact of it, I don't think we've seen it yet. I think we begin to see the tip of the spear penetrate the wall that has separated us for so long. And I think that It is a foundation for the future, so that all of our stories about us does not start with enslavement. And if your history starts with enslavement, then the Arabs have a legitimate view of us as slaves, if that's where your history starts. But it doesn't start there, and we have to be cognizant of that. However, when you've been conditioned to believe that, then it is very difficult to go beyond that. How were we conditioned to believe that? Well, February used to be Black History Week, then it was Black History Month. And every time it dealt with Frederick Douglass, Harriet Tubman, or slaves. But it never went back to Africa, because we have been conditioned to separate ourselves from Africa. But this changed everything. Everything. Oh, and the last thing, if the prince had not taken over Saudi Arabia, that movie never would have been shown. The whole world, except the Arab world, would have seen that movie.
So some of them have access, they just don't.
They just don't. Yeah. And think about this also about Saudi Arabia. What's beginning to happen in Saudi Arabia? That feminine energy is asserting itself. It's being released. It's pushing forth. It's asserting itself, and it's being reflected in some of the things like simple to us driving. I remember when women in America couldn't drive. Couldn't get a driver's license. So it seems like a menial thing. It was done a long time. Yeah. The only alternative for me, I'm not remembering that, is to be senile or be younger or be dead. So I'm not senile, I'm not younger, I'm not dead. That's what I remember. When females can get along in their name. So, when we talk about, well, that's not much when a woman's driving in Saudi Arabia, what about him? That's not much because they're moving to a place where women don't have to wear burqas. Well, tell the Catholics to take the burqas off the nuns. There's no difference. The only difference, their face is not covered up. But they have to follow all the other Paulinian things. Woman, cover your head. That kind of stuff.
Okay, Rania, anything else that you remember while we were talking?
No. Although I think it is an interesting point to talk about the prince being the reason Saudi Arabia is opening up. I mean, there's been tons of news on him on our, on the news feeds because of all the technology he's investing in. And it made me think about the city with the wildernesses in between and the very futuristic cities and still searching, because he's definitely trying to do a lot of that.
Because he has the means and the wherewithal to do all of that, yet the missing part is the spiritual essence, the underpinning, the connection of identifying with the Shekinah, and that spiritual essence.
But the thing is, America, what gets me about it is what the U.S. is doing. They're all over this guy. I mean, he has met with so many people on the West Coast, these titans of industry, so to speak. All of them want a piece of him. Boeing, Apple, Bezos, Amazon,
not only that,
Lockheed Martin.
The politicians want a piece of him. That's the best thing that could happen in the world. What he did, he actually took the country from his daddy. Yeah, and from what I'm getting, what I'm understanding is that the only reason he was able to lock everybody up is because in one of the security briefings that the president gets, Jared saw it and told him. So
Yeah, thank you, Volt.
yeah, so but from what I'm getting, the prince said that Jared told him who they were. So this whole thing looks like it's going to be a world government that dominates everyone, when in essence it is unraveling. And the unraveling of it is seen by the collusion, for lack of a better term, between those who are the chief racists on the face of this earth. Because the prince is a racist. The prince is just as much racist as Donald Trump is. And Putin is a racist. So they're no different. So what happens is that all of this stuff has to be exposed before it can be dealt with. You're not going to convince me that Saudi Arabia, they're not racist. So what happens is, did we say as America goes, so goes the world? Exposure started where? Exposure started in America, didn't it? Now it's beginning to spread around the world. And that's just where we are. Look at Bolton. Bolton is a racist. And there is Bolton is a racist. I mean, that's known. Everyone knows that. So all of these things are transpiring for a reason. The church has been exposed, but nobody's looking at it. The church is exposed for being a business that justifies anything the government decides to do by virtue of it saying, we give Donald a pass, but we're going to have a meeting with him this week to talk about his indiscretion. Are you kidding me? You're doing this because of Russians. Yeah. Now you say, well, what about the African church? It don't even matter, because the African church is based on the evangelical church anyway. So when it falls, all of it falls. And as I said on one of the reason that was given by the Republicans in the state for secession is if anything is done about the gun laws of significance, then they're going to vote to secede from the Union, which is crazy. It's not going to happen because South Carolina is too poor. South Carolina is on welfare.
The whole state?
Yes, the whole state is on welfare. If South Carolina did not receive the money that it received from the federal government, it was shut down tomorrow. South Carolina is a begging state. It received more than, I think it's like $1.50 for every 60 cents that it puts into the federal tax. So that's not going to happen.
It's one of the major. Finally, South Carolina's in the top 10.
So,
although it turned down the Medicare money because,
so all of these things, all of it is coming to fruition, yet, it appears that there are separate things that's happening. When you can see it from the other side, you begin to see that these things are all connected. It's like trying to pull the base from the pyramid without the whole thing talking. It's not going to happen.
I remember having a conversation with Romeo this last week when we were talking about, I think it was this week, talking about distractions and how, if you weren't rooted in something, you could let all of this stuff cause fear to rise up in you. But we're the ones who talked about this, that we wanted to pull the scab off to start with. And so, because of the exposure of everything that's coming out the infectious stuff that's coming out. We can't get scared then about the limb being chopped off now, or amputations, or is it going to cost that person's life or my life? We can't be taken off course, and so we have to look at this in the context of, as you said, it's got to happen so that they can do some cleaning out of that wound. Otherwise, it'll just scab over again. We still have the same mess underneath.
And we have to see it so we can say the major thing. I forgive it.
Right, we can't fear it. We have to
Forgive it. You don't know what to forgive if you don't see it. So all of these things have to appear for that, because forgiveness, without forgiveness, there's no love and kindness. Without love, there's no mercy. Without forgiveness, it is impossible for you to say, I'm not going to forgive you, but I love you. Are you kidding me? That's not the way it works in the spiritual realm. So what is the most powerful thing? Forgiveness.
My question is, have we forgiven ourselves of whatever it is in our own world, internally?
That's where it begins.
Because it's difficult to be able to extend that forgiveness when you're still holding that grudge against our own very being.
I feel like that issue is at the heart of so many cycles that we struggle to break in our lives. We stumble over the same obstacles
Over and over.
Call it generational curses. And it's actually unforgiveness itself.
So we still have some internal things, some internal work to do, to look at ourselves in the mirror, in our internal mirror, as we stay on the path and stay on track with understanding what's revealing itself, not only in the external world, but in the broader, macular, spiritual realm.
I think one of the major things that I believe that we as a people have to look at in terms of forgiveness, we have to forgive ourselves for buying into this inferiority complex that we have. We have been conditioned to believe that we are inferior to Caucasians. And every one of us has bought into that. And we have been forced to buy into it. And one of the ways we've been forced to buy into it is having that conversation with our sons if they're in the police video. That's the inferiority complex. Having a conversation with our sons and daughters about not picking up anything in the store that you're not going to purchase, making sure you get a receipt and a bag, those kinds of things. That's inferiority. We have been conditioned to think that way. However, it is something that we have to move away from and trust the Creator to deal with it. We have to do that. And I believe that one of the reasons maybe that the police killings are so prevalent is because of their lack of forgiveness. I was listening to something on the radio, and they talked about how this case went before the Supreme Court out of Los Angeles, and the Supreme Court virtually gave policemen the right to do what they do, because the guy was put over for a tail light, and he was it was 1982, and he was beaten by the policeman to the point that when he woke up, when he came to, he was unconscious. When he came to, they put him in a chokehold, and he had defecated, urinated on himself, and was spitting blood and dirt. When he found out that there were several people in Los Angeles that don't do the same thing, he took it to the Supreme Court. Well, it ended up in the Supreme Court. And the ruling was that he did not have the right to sue because he could not prove that he would be affected, this would affect him in a violent way in the future. So
I think the concept they did that under was called conditional immunity for the police.
and the city, because they
And
also
it was a 5-4 vote, and the women on the Supreme Court just lambasted that decision with long for the first time. Sort of my irony that was just said, this is so far off base.
And this is a
And that balance at the time.
they didn't have that balance in 82. So, but it also says, it gave cities immunity. It says that you cannot sue a city unless it does something that's unconstitutional, as long as it has a policy in place to deal with that. In other words, if the city does not have a policy in place that says that you can sue them for police brutality, you can't sue the city. That's what the Supreme Court said. I mean, that's in essence what it said. So we go all the way back to the Dred Scott decision. That's the same principle.
Mhm.
So these are the type things that are being presented that we have to look at, so we know what we're dealing with. These type things what give us this inferiority complex. Think about it. We have to be twice as good in order to be considered equal, and they still don't care anything about you. Have you heard that before?
Yes.
So what does that say? We are always trying to prove ourselves. I don't think I said this. There was a study done of Africans and Africans born in this country. What it said is that African Americans, regardless of how affluent they are or how poor they are always in a state of stress, fight or flight mode continuously. And that is the reason high blood pressure, heart disease, and diabetes are prevalent among African people. However, they went to Africa and did the same study. They found out that they are not in fight or flight mode. Yet, when this lady came from who was born and reared in Africa, had a daughter in this country, the daughter was in the fight or flight mode, but the mother wasn't. One generation. And how did she get that? Based because of the energy that's in the society. These are the things that we have to look at. Healing doesn't. When Jesus talked about healing, he wasn't. He was using physical healing to give us the spiritual truth. So the healing comes when we move beyond the fight or flight mode, when we move beyond this inferiority complex that we have been indoctrinated with. You see where I'm coming from? And so all of us are in the fight or flight mode, because if you think you're not, you're pulled over in the middle of the night by police. What's the first thing you do? Put your hands on the steering wheel, both of them, and hope for the best. So,
Dr. Richard,
yes,
well, where that also shows up at, in terms of infant mortality rate, African Americans compared to everyone else, including women who come directly from Africa and not the descendants of the enslaved in the Americas. No matter how affluent they are or not, African Americans have a higher infant mortality rate, and also undergo higher rates of complications during birth.
and all of this is tied to that inferiority complex, which says what? It's spiritual. We need the spiritual healing. And when Jesus said, physician, heal thyself, that no one can deliver you from this inferiority complex except you. You have to change the way you think about yourself. You have to change the way you think about everything. You have to change the way you view yourself. What do you see when you look in the mirror? And I don't mean the one on the wall. What do you see when you look in the mirror? Yeah. Why is it that most of us, regardless of where we are financially or educationally, we feel like we are one step from failure. Why do we always entertain it? Because in the material world, it's the truth. So when we detach from material things, then that's a part of the healing that takes place. Because if you feel like you're one step from failure, you're always stressed. But if you detach from things, then that stress begins to come to a place of minimization or is gone altogether. I mean, borderline diabetic, borderline high blood pressure, borderline heart disease, everything borderline, or you got it. I don't know about you. I'm not borderline anything in that regard. And this is the other part of it. When I make statements that somebody asked me about a book that they are reading that helps you to, it promotes self-esteem. And they asked me, I said, well, I've not heard of that book before. Well, do you know any you can recommend? I said, no, but I don't read though. And they said to me, well, no, you don't have to because you grew up arrogant. And I'm like, yeah, I did. If that's where you want to put it, I most certainly did. I grew up believing in myself. I grew up believing that I could do anything I wanted to do. I believed that. Now, what were they saying to me? They were saying to me that you are arrogant because you don't have an inferiority complex. If you're African and you don't have an inferiority complex, you're uppity. Think about it. And I don't have an inferiority complex. So I am considered arrogant or uppity. But when you are not African, when you're Caucasian, you feel that way, you're ambitious. And that's just the reality of it. We have to change the way we think. And what have we done with our kids? We have told our children we want you to be better than we are, but at the same time, we have put the same inferiority complexes in them by virtue of telling them what needs to be done in order to stay safe. Is that not the same thing that happened with the, what is his name? The guy who wrote the thing on how to break a slave. Willie Lynch. That's the same thing that it's the same thing with Willie Lynch. Willie Lynch talked about breaking a slave. How do you break a slave today? By telling that slave you're always considered a thief. So watch yourself when you go into the store. By telling that slave you are expendable. So be careful when the police pull you over. That's what we're saying. And what do we call it? We don't call it living. We call it survival. And survival is totally different from living. So the question
for survival, you are always in fight or flight mode.
Right. And the question comes rapidly to me. What is it? So have we ever lived? We've only survived. So we have to get to a place individually and collectively where we are not in fight or flight mode, where we truly, truly believe that we were all that we were created to be. And at that juncture, or at that point, that's when we began to live as opposed to just survive. So what did we say when things happened? When the economy went bad, what did we say? We survived worse.
And we always made it.
Yeah, because we survived.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe everything is happening, and maybe Black Panther was put out there so we could begin to heal ourselves from low self-esteem, showing us that that Wakanda is simply the spiritual realm, the place of life itself, showing us that you are what the world needs. Whatever the world needs, you will get when it needs it.
I'm going to
It is. And that's one of the things that we look at when we talk about who is Jesus. You know, this idea of Jesus, what they teach us, Jesus was a Jew. Jesus wasn't no Jew. Jesus was a Palestinian. But they're not going to let that happen. Because we have to, because it gives us, it makes him a person of color. But no one thinks of that when you say Jew. These are the things I do believe wholeheartedly we have to deal with. And the other thing is that look at how easy it is to talk about the Holocaust, how easy it is to talk about the genocide committed against the Native Americans, and how difficult it is for us to talk about what was committed, perpetrated against us as slaves. We are condemned when we talk about it as playing the race card. But when we tell the truth, we playing the race card. But Native Americans can tell the truth and nobody says anything. There has to be a reason for that. What is the reason for that? Because if you ever get to the place where you do not have low self-esteem, if you ever get to the place where you understand that you are inferior to no one and you're not superior to anyone else, if you understand that, I'm eye to eye, toe to toe with you, you become a threat. Fear. And that is the reason it's only us as a people.
and that's probably what contributes to so much of this violence now. To try to tamp that down, continue to tamp that down. The realization that this person is a real person, just like I'm a person. So there's that attempt to create that, to perpetuate that fear. But it's having a different effect now. People are seeing it for what it is instead of what they used to be able to hide it under.
Yeah, I mean, look, what are they afraid of? Two things. First of all, we invented everything that's useful. Secondly, the fear is being blind. Why is it that you're afraid of being blind? Why is it is brown bad? Race doesn't exist, so why does it matter what color you are? Why does it matter? Those are the kinds of things, the questions that we have to answer. When they talk about the brown of America, and they talk about limited immigration from Canada, from Europe, they fly in here every day and overstay their visas. Every day. Nobody's round up Canadians. Then you have this guy get on TV and say we can't be the orphanage of the world. One of the guys from Congress said we can't be the orphanage from Alabama. We can't be the orphanage of the world. What are you saying? You're saying that brown people are orphans. They can't take care of themselves. You're saying that brown people are a burden on society. That's what he's saying, Tristan. One. That we're saying that brown people are burden. Is that not what's being said? This to me doesn't make sense. Now, this is the other part of it. The issue with the browning of America is seen through white supremacy, right? The fear of it. Wasn't nobody thinking about that when we were being raped? By us being light. Wasn't nobody thinking about that then? So why all of a sudden is that an issue? Because of the numbers. It's a numbers game. It's a control factor. In 1974, when Hispanic was put on the census form, what was that to do? To separate us. All of a sudden, Puerto Ricans are realizing they're no different than we are, and why they don't have lights. What is that? And suppose that what we are doing, what we're talking about, and what Reindeer them is the catalyst that brings us to this point when we begin to just expose everything because of what it is, and this is the turning point. You know, at some point, things have to turn.
I think the turn has already started. It's again. A couple of years ago when we said things would happen so fast. I mean, so much has happened now than the previous 10 years, even, the previous 5 years even. And so the churn is already in process. We just have to continue to acknowledge that it is, and not let somebody let somebody fool us that it's not, things are just the way they were before. Because that can be easily done as well, if we buy into that.
Or then it's done. Or then it's done.
It feels like, no, we've been there for 5 years.
It's not over yet.
Yeah. And it is.
I don't want it to be over yet.
Huh?
I said, I don't want it to be over yet.
I don't want this to be half done. I don't want a generation after us to come back and have to do what we could have done while we were here present. The commitment has to be all or nothing. That has to be the commitment, all or nothing.
Yeah, because I might end up in the next round too. Whereas I could be a star somewhere. I'm back here on Earth. Goodness, plugging at a different level. Anyway.
I mean, truly, that has to be the commitment, all or nothing. And it has to be not based upon how you feel. It's based upon what needs to be done. What are you willing to give up to be who you were created to be and to bring humanity to the same place? What are you willing to give up? What are you willing to walk away from? Self. Walk away from self. Walk away from all your ambitions and all your desires. Just throw it to the wind. Why? Because the only way that you can that you can be guided on this journey is to be guided by someone who knows the way. And obviously we don't. So we're being taught. If the steps of a righteous man are ordered by the Lord, then why we are ordering our steps?
Other comments, observations? What I'm finding now is that it's not just the quote unquote the teachers that are really fueling our discussion and understanding, but it's what everybody in the body is bringing to the table and opening up for discussion, which becomes part of the unpeeling of the onion, if you will, or the opening up of the petal even more. And so, And I think that's a good thing. That says we're not where we were as a group of people even a year ago. So,
And
that's encouraging.
and that, you know, when we were in January,
In January,
we were in January. We're seeing things from a different perspective. We're starting to engage and I think that is the keep our eyes open. We say, I hope I know. Keep our eye open, I should say. Yes, you know, I know. I got 2 phone calls, maybe 2, 3 hours apart. One was about these ladies who go to the jail to teach and to mentor females. And when they got there, the females told them that they had a horrendous night because they saw this dark shadow, and this dark shadow was hovering over this one person in particular. And she said she could see herself behind it. And there were about 20 women there, and every one of them experienced the same thing. And we talked about the intensity of the heat in the place, to the extent that they called the desk sergeant to try to meet them. And he said the heat was not up that much. And the fear of that gripped them. And they asked me, what was that? And my response to that was, I don't have a clue. 2 or 3 hours later, I got a phone call. This lady says that her daughter was looking at her vanity where she puts on her makeup, and she saw this man standing behind her in a black suit. But when she turns around, he's not there anymore. And she asked me, what was that? And I said, I don't have a clue. Now, I did not have a clue at that point. I still don't truly have a clue. However, I do believe that when I began dealing with it, I'll see it. Because something is happening. There needs to be an understanding, I do believe, of the spiritual realm. We are seeing this realm, the manifestations of the spiritual realm, but that spiritual world we have not experienced in terms of being able to understand it. What is it made out of? How does it function? How does this thing that we call spiritual energy function once it exits the body? Since there is clearly no such thing as a geographical location of something called hell, then there has to be something that takes place with this with this spiritual energy once it exits this body. What does it look like? What is it capable of? Or could it possibly be that what they experienced was that dark shadow being someone with evil intentions trapped between 2 worlds, and the heat that they experienced was a release of the energy from that thing that they experienced? Could it possibly be that the young lady also saw the same thing, someone trapped between 2 worlds? Could it possibly be that? Because Mama said, the girl said she thought it was her daddy, but she was sitting on the chair. I told her, it could have been her daddy. Her daddy wearing no suit. The man had no suit, her dad don't wear suit. So it could have been her daddy. But it scared her it scared her. And she had to calm her down. So what do you
in the prison, did you say that it was the same night and there were more than one woman?
There was 20 women who
experienced that same
at least every year.
Essence.
Yeah. 20.
The same night.
No. I got the call the same day, so I don't know whether it was the same night. Well, yes, it was, because I got the call yesterday, and she said last night it was the same night.
But if it hadn't been her dad, she would have been afraid. I mean,
I know.
you know what I'm saying?
What frightened her when she went in the room, and he was sitting there. Right? She tried to stand there. But so I believe that we're at a place where manifestations are fine, but understanding how they manifest, understanding the other world, because we were created to understand both worlds. Yes. Yeah, but we don't understand how the spiritual realm works because we've been told that there's a hell and there's a heaven, and you're going to hell and you're going to run forever. We've been told that. We've been told, and I've said it, I've taught it about the money of God, the money of possession, when we understand there's no such thing as that. There is disorder in the mind. And if you look at the real understanding of what Jesus did, he just actually brought order to the mind. You know the ones that said that, and he was clothed and in his right mind. He was dealing with mental illness. But we don't even understand mental illness. But mental illness is something that we can understand if we understand the spiritual realm. What we see in someone who we say is mentally ill is a manifestation of a spiritual realm, just like everything else is. So, you understand?
I also think mental illness is functioning at a level that is near the spiritual as well. They just don't understand because what we see from a physical perspective, looking at someone who is quote unquote mentally ill, is a different frame of reference for that person. But with the right preparation and mentoring and whatever, there are lots of people who are labeled as mentally ill who are in touch with that spiritually. You know, I have people every day I work with these young clients, and you ask them what day is it going to be in 2025 in Monday, the first Monday in 2025. They can tell you. Or any other day you work. So, you know, it's almost like there's an imbalance of sort. There's no transition clearly from the physical to the spiritual, and so you're caught in the middle. And from the physical, you perceive as being mentally ill, and maybe from a spiritual perspective, you're trapped and you haven't broken through. Yeah. So.
But that's just the reverse when the spirit leaves the body, isn't it? When it leaves the body, it can be in the same position, and that is considered a ghost. When the actuality is in manifestation. So being in this physical world is one thing. However, in order to understand the other world, you pretty much have to be totally detached from the things that will cause distractions in this world. And when I say things that cause distraction, I'm not talking about just things that we make. I'm talking about illness, whether it is you or someone else. I'm talking about murder, whether it's in your family or rape, whether it's in your family, wherever it is. These are, we have to see them from a spiritual perspective. And it's difficult, it's easy to say that until it happens to you. When it comes, not knock on your door, when it comes to your house. That's what the rubber needs to go. How do you deal with it at that point? And so the idea of living in those worlds is a comforting thing, but at the same time, it is discomforting.
It could be very scary if you don't understand.
Oh, yeah, very scary. It's even scary sometimes if you do, because based on what you see, you know, the things that people have to endure in order for us to get to this place where humanity is balanced. That in itself will also be frightening. Think about if you had seen the carnage at Parkland before that. Those kinds of things, and I'm talking about vividly, not just the essence of it. Those kinds of things are frightening because I remember clearly when Pamela and I were, and I think I told you it was in Oklahoma now. It was Pamela and her husband and I were sitting at the table, and these men walked in and looked at each other, and shook our head, and her husband said, "What's wrong?" Well, both of us saw the same thing. She was really good. And when other people walk in, it's like, "Oh my God, I don't want to see this." But we could actually see their lives. Now, I believe that happened so the Creator says, "I've shown you what's possible. Now let's back up and see how you get there. There are things you need to let go of so you can get this thing." So now I have a great appreciation for it because I see things differently. So, and that's the thing with the kids, the young clients you have with the dates, they actually are seeing what they see a calendar in 2025.
Oh, they see themselves.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm here. That's the thing.
So it doesn't, it does not bother me as it once would have, regardless of what happens, because right now, 99.9% of the time, I see the glass half full. 99.9% of the time, I'm the one who said, "Okay, let's look at this spiritual. Regardless of what you're going through, it is not purpose to destroy you. Let's see what the strength is in this." And usually the strength in it is preparation for you to help someone else cross the hurdle that you're facing. But we are so separate from each other that we feel like so individualistic. Someone said to me, "It's one thing to be intelligent, but you're good-hearted man. You will give up anything to anyone." And when I think about that, the world has enough selfishness, doesn't it? Suppose that all of us do that, regardless of what it is. I'm not I told you many times that Phoebe handles the bill, because if I do, it wouldn't be nobody to handle the bill, because someone needs it done. So she, that kind of attitude. I just believe that we shouldn't be the people who say, "Well, I'm not going to call the news because the phone rings both ways." That shouldn't be us. If Janice comes up in my mind, however that is to be described, I call her. But she doesn't want me to get her, but she'll ever call me and call her. We should not say that, well, we didn't approve appreciate me the first time, so I'm not gonna put myself in that position again to be hurt. It should not be this way. When you're that way, that person might not hurt you, but the Creator will find somebody else to hurt you. Until you get to the place where you understand that the pain is the gain. The pain that you experience from other people is designed to make you strong. It's not going to destroy you. Our attitude has to change because whether our desire is to live in both worlds or not, you can't travel the journey without doing it. But the attitude has to be. We have to believe the first line of the 23rd Psalm. Because Yahweh is shepherding me, I have no lack. We must believe that. And lack is not talking about what you need to live, and this earth is important in that. Lack is insight. When you have insight, I don't lack insight. I don't lack compassion and empathy. I have no those things are who I am as opposed to what I do. And this has to be directed toward everyone, especially the one who mistreats you. So I'm not going to be a doormat. When did helping people become? When did you become a when did reaching out? When did embracing? When did doing? Been hurt, can't talk about you. No, I've been hurt. And the same people who hurt me are the people who I put out to. Pain is the pain. The pain is knowing who you are. The pain is not natural. It's not. When the Lord and I were talking, we talked about when we were in college, the days we would come home and we had to sleep in the car with Dad. That's up my days to get home. And how now that's different. And I said to him, well, people have to get to a place where they understand you don't have to be a millionaire to be comfortable. You don't need $1 million to be comfortable. Comfort comes from the perspective. Well, comes from how you see yourself. Comfort comes from how you see yourself. Think about generation that was born in the late 1800s and lived through the Depression of the 1900s for that matter. They didn't have anything near what we have. They were at peace. They were at peace. And they were not individualistic because neighbors took their neighbor. But when we became materially, well, not wealthy, but when we gained more materially, we moved away from our neighbors. physically as the person next door to you. But Jesus talks about love thy neighbor as you love yourself. There are two interpretations for that. One is the physical neighbor. The other one is the neighborhood that's inside of you. And if you love what's in you, then that means that you have to love the thing also. Because trouble doesn't last always. I know you've heard that before. Pain doesn't last always. In the morning comes in the middle of the night sometimes. Your morning might come at 12 midnight. Because it has nothing to do with the sunrise. It has everything to do with the moment that you embrace what you do. That's your moment. Without that, with all the contradictions, or with all the distractions, when we only see the distractions, when we only see the complaints and the problems, the tragedies, morning never comes. They're always in the middle of the night. Morning never comes. Wouldn't it be great if we could just live in the freshness of it all?
Cyberland, any other comments?
No, I'm okay.
Dwayne, Michelle, anything else?
No, nothing here.
Nothing here.
Nothing is done.
It's a Vincent. Yes, Vincent.
I hear you, sir.
It's
Okay. Alrighty then.
Well, could you guys
a Vincent.
tell VJ happy birthday since his birthday will be on Monday? I
Yeah.
think he would like.
Happy
Happy
birthday.
birthday.
Happy birthday.
Thank you.
Happy almost 6.
Yeah.
Thanks, y'all.
All right. Until tomorrow. See you guys later. Make it a good one. It's your choice.
You too. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye, Shell.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.